Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Magnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Vasudevaya. Om Namo Kadamahyam Darati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Tapatakalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrijatam Sahaganaragunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Visakanvidamscha हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमः विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासारि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत् शृण्वतं स्वाकता कृष्ण पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तनारित्यन्दस्तो यभद्राणि विदुनुति सुहृत्सतां नस्तप्रायेष्व भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवतसेवया भागवति उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी. Before reciting the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayana, unto Nara Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai, Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai. Oh, wrong book. Wrong book. Where is our book? Haribol. Today we start the pink book, the pink Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, part 4. Here is Kapila Dev and Devahuti, I think. Haribol. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Oh, look at this. Oh, this guy is smoking. The guy is dying here. He cannot breathe or anything. This guy is here. He's just smoking. He doesn't. Look at this guy. He's like, die already. I need to go to the work. This is funny. Oh, Krishna. Even the baby is there. Oh, look at this. At the end of the millennium, you lie down on a leaf of banyan tree, and just like a small baby, you lick the toe of your lotus foot. Here is baby Krishna. Chapter 25. The Glories of Devotional Service. Shonakauvacha Kapilastatva Sankyata Bhagavanatma Mayaya Jadasvayam Aja Sakshad Atma Prajna Ptaye Ptayenam. Oh, this last word is hard. Pragnaptaye Nirnam. Shaunaka Uvacha, Sri Shaunaka said, Kapila, Lord Kapila, Tattva of the truth, Sankyata, the expounder, Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Atma Mayaya, by his internal potency, Jata, took birth, Svayam, himself, Aja, unborn, Sakshat, in person, Atma Pragnaptaye, to disseminate transcendental knowledge, Nirnam, for the human race. Translation. Sri Shonaka said, although he is unborn, the Supreme Personality of Godhead took birth as Kapila Muni by his internal potency. He descended to disseminate transcendental knowledge for the benefit of the whole human race. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The word Atma Pragnaptaye indicates that the Lord descends for the benefit of the human race to give transcendental knowledge. Material necessities are quite sufficiently provided for in the Vedic knowledge, which offers a program for good living conditions and gradual elevation to the platform of goodness. Oh, now we have passed 1,000 pages. Haribol. In the mode of goodness, one's knowledge expands. On the platform of passion, there is no knowledge, for passion is simply an impetus to enjoy material benefits. On the platform of ignorance, there is no knowledge and no enjoyment, but simply life, almost like that of animals. The Vedas are meant to elevate one from the mode of ignorance to the platform of goodness. When one is situated in the mode of goodness, he is able to understand knowledge of the self or transcendental knowledge. This knowledge cannot be appreciated by any ordinary man. Therefore, since a disciplic succession is required, this knowledge is expounded either by the Supreme Person of Godhead himself or by his bona fide devotee. Shaunaka Muni also states here that Kapila, the incarnation of the Supreme Person of Godhead, took his birth or appearance simply to appreciate and disseminate transcendental knowledge. Simply to understand that one is not matter but spirit soul, Aham Brahmasmi, I am by nature Brahman, is not sufficient knowledge for understanding the self and his activities. One must be situated in the activities of Brahman, and that knowledge is explained by the Supreme Person of Godhead himself. Such transcendental knowledge can be appreciated in human society, but not in animal society, as clearly indicated here by the word nirnam, for the human beings. Beings are meant for regulated life. By nature, there is regulation in animal life also, but that is not like the regulative life as described in the scriptures or by the authorities. Human life is regulated life, not animal life. In regulated life only can one understand transcendental knowledge. Text number 2. Nahyasya varshmana pumsham varimna sarvayoginam Vishrutau Shruta Devasya Bhuri Tripyanti Me Shava. Na, not he, indeed. Asya, about him. Varshmana, the greatest. Pumsham, among men. Varimna, the foremost. Sarva, all. Yoginam, of yogis. Vishrutau, in hearing. Shruta Devasya, the master of the Vedas. Bhuri, repeatedly. Tripyanti are sated. What is sated? Oh, satisfied. Are sated. Why is not are satiated? Why is, I've never heard. This is weird. Interesting. My Ashava senses. Translation. Shonaka continued. There is no one who knows more than the Lord himself. No one is more worshipable or more mature a yogi than he. He is therefore the master of the Vedas, and to hear about him always is the actual pleasure of the senses. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita it is stated that no one can be equal to or greater than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is confirmed in the Vedas also. Eko Bahunam Yo Pidadati Kaman. He is the supreme living entity and is supplying the necessities of all other living entities. Thus, all other living entities, both Vishnu Tattva and Jiva Tattva, are subordinate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. The same concept is confirmed here. Nahyasya Varshmanah Pumsham. Amongst the living entities, no one can surpass the Supreme Person because no one is richer, more famous, stronger, more beautiful, wiser, or more renounced than he. These qualifications make him the Supreme Godhead, the cause of all causes. Yogis are very proud of performing wonderful feats, but no one can compare to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anyone who is associated with the Supreme Lord is accepted as a first-class yogi. Devotees may not be as powerful as the Supreme Lord, but by constant association with the Lord, they become as good as the Lord himself. Sometimes the devotees act more powerfully than the Lord. Of course, that is the Lord's concession. Also used here is the word varimna, the most worshipful of all yogis. To hear from Krishna is the real pleasure of the senses. Therefore, he is known as Govinda. For by his words, by his teachings, by his instructions, by everything connected with him, he enlivens the senses. Whatever he instructs is from the transcendental platform, and his instructions, being absolute, are non different from him. Hearing from Krishna or his expansions or plenary expansions like Kapila is very pleasing to the senses. Bhagavad Gita can be read or heard many times, but because it gives great pleasure, the more one reads Bhagavad Gita, the more he gets the appetite to read and understand it. And each time he gets new enlightenment. That is the nature of the transcendental message. Similarly, we find that transcendental happiness in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. The more we hear and chant the glories of the Lord, the more we become happy. Text number 3. Yad yad vidatte bhagavan svachandatmatma mayaya tani me shraddhadanasya kirtayanyanu Yat whatever, vidatte, he performs. Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. Svachandatma, full of self-desire. Atma mayaya, by his internal potency. Tani, all of them. Me, to me. Shraddhadanasya, faithful. Kirtanyani, worthy of praise. Anukirtaya, please describe. Translation. Therefore, please precisely describe all the activities and pastimes of the personality of Godhead, who is full of self-desire and who assumes all these activities by his internal potency. Purport. The word Anukirta is very significant. Anukirta means to follow the descriptions, not to create a concocted mental description, but to follow. Shonaka Rishi requested Shuta Goswami to describe what he had actually heard from his spiritual master. Shukadev Goswami about the transcendental pastimes which the Lord manifested by his internal energy. Bhagavan, the Supreme Person of Godhead, has no material body, but he can assume any kind of body by his supreme will. That is made possible by his internal energy. Text number 4. Sutavacha Dvaipayana Shakas Tvevam Maitreyo Bhagavanstata Prahedam Viduram Prita Anvikshikyam Prachodita. Shuta Vacha, Sutta Goswami said, Dvaipayana Shaka, friend of Vyasadeva. 2. Then, Evam thus, Maitreya, Bhagavan, worshipful. Tata, in that way. Praha spoke, Idam, this. Viduram, to Vidura. Prita, being pleased. Anvikshi, an, Anvikshikyam, about transcendental knowledge. Prachodita, being asked. Translation. Sri Sutta Goswami said, the most powerful sage, Maitreya, was a friend of Vyasadeva's. Thus being encouraged, Maitreya, pleased by Vidura's inquiry about transcendental knowledge, spoke as follows. Purport. Questions and answers are very satisfactorily dealt with when the inquirer is bona fide and the speaker is also authorized. Here Maitreya is considered a powerful sage and therefore he is also described as a Bhagavan. This word can be used not only for the Supreme Person of Godhead, but for anyone who is almost as powerful as the Supreme Lord. Maitreya is addressed as Bhagavan because he was spiritually far advanced. He was a personal friend of Dvaipayana, Vyasadeva, who is a literary incarnation of the Lord. Maitreya was very pleased with the inquiries of Vidura, because they were the inquiries of a bona fide advanced devotee. Thus Maitreya was encouraged to answer. When there are discourses on transcendental topics between devotees of equal mentality, the questions and answers are very fruitful and encouraging.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, Dandot Ram to all of you, Jai Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu Standatram, Jai Shila Prabhupada. Okay, text number 5.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandot Ram, Jai Shri Prabhu.
Oh, Praveen Prabhu joined
Hare
also.
Krishna Prabhu, Jai Shri.
So, can you give me 10 more minutes?
Yes,
Let
Prabhu.
me finish one more task, and I can start reading this chapter as well.
Yes, Prabhu, okay.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
So, Rishikesh Prabhu or Shubham Prabhu, would you like to read?
Yes, so
I can-
may I read some sloka?
Yes, Prabhu, you can read this one. This is short.
Pitari Vindu Sare, Pitari Prasthite, Maitre watch, Pitari Prasthite Ranyam, Madhav Priyatikersaya, Aswin Vindu Sare, Vathit, Bhagavan Kapila, Maitre watch. Maitre said, Pitari, when the father Prasthite left Ranyam for the forest, Matu, his mother, Priyatikirsaya with desire is scroll or Ranyam for the to please with desire to please Chikirsaya. Thus when on that Bindu Saralik Bindu Sarovar Asthita he stayed Bhagavan the Lord Kapila killed indeed. Translation and purport by Divine Grace is Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. Maitreya said, when Kardama left for the forest, Lord Kapila stayed on the strand of the Vindu Sarovar in order to please his mother Devhuti. Purport. In the absence of the father, it is the duty of grown-up son to take up charge of his mother and to serve her to the best of his capacity, so that she will not feel separation from her husband. And it is the duty of the husband to leave home as soon as there is a grown-up son to take charge of his wife and family affair. That is the Vedic system of household life. One should not remain continuously implicated in household affairs up to the time of death. He must leave family. He must leave family affairs, and the wife may be taken charge of by a grown-up son. Yes, for one more I can read, but then I can.
Prabhu, thank you.
Tamasain Tamasainamakarmanam Tattmargagradarsanam Sasutam Devahutyaha Dhato Tammartimmatyaha Tam Tohim Kapila Asainam seated Aganamanam at least leisure Tattva of the absolute truth Marga Agra, the ultimate goal. Darshanam who could so Sasutam Hastan Devhuti Ah said Dhatu of Brahma Samsati remembering Vacha the words. Devhuti remember the words spoken by her spoken to her by Brahma, seeing her son Kapila, who could show the ultimate goal of the absolute truth, sitting at leisure. She questioned him as follows: Prabhu, what is the meaning of leisure? Leisure.
It means free time, Prabhu.
Okay, bro. Devatiraj. So, may I read or someone else will read?
You can
May I
read.
read, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu, you can read.
निर्विण्णानेतरां भौमन् असदेन्द्रियदर्शनात् येन सम्भाव्यमानेन प्रपन्नान्धं तम प्रभो देवोत्तरदेवते said Nirvana disgusted Nitram very Bhuman, O my lord, Asat impermanent Indriya of the senses does not from agitation yen by which Sambhavyamanen being prevalent when I have fallen Andhamtama into the abyss of ignorance, Prabhu, my Lord. Translation Devati said, I am very sick of the disturbance of my material senses. For because of these sense disturbance, my Lord, I have fallen into the abyss of ignorance. Purport. Yes, true. Scroll. Here the word asat in Tashnat is significant. Asat means impermanent, temporary, and Indriya means senses. The Satendriya Tashnat means from being agitated by the temporarily manifest sense of the material body. We are evolving through different statuses of material bodily existence, sometime in a human body, sometime in an animal body, and therefore the engagement of our material senses are also changing. Anything which changes is called temporary or sat. We should know that beyond these temporary senses are our permanent senses, which are now caused by material body, the permanent senses being contaminated. Yes, bro, it's called mm, by matter or not acting properly. Devotional service, therefore, in by matter or not acting properly. Devotional service, therefore, in yes, bro. Some little mm, down, Prabhu, because I cannot see some more, Prabhu. Bas. Therefore, involves freeing the senses from the contamination. When the contamination is completely removed and the senses act in the purity of Lord Krishna consciousness, then we have reached Sat Indriya or eternal sense activities. Eternal sensual activities are called devotional service, whereas temporary sensual activities are called sense gratification unless one becomes tired of material sense gratification. There is no opportunity to hear transcendental message from a person like Kapila. Devati expressed that he was tired. Now that her husband had left home, she wanted to get relief by hearing the instruction of Lord Kapila. Yes, bro. Yes, bro. Someone, if want to read. If
Thank you.
I am read.
Ye-
Yes, Prabhu. Okay, Rishikesh Prabhu can read next.
Yes, bro. Text it. तस्या त्वं तमसो तस्य दुष्परस्यदा यस्य यस्यदा परागं सचक्षुर्जन्मनाम् अन्ते लब्धं मे त्वद् अनुग्रहात् tasya that tvam you tamasa ignorance andasya darkness dushparasya difficult to cross adya now paragam crossing over shat transcendental chakshu I janmanam of births ante at the end labdham attained me my may my tvat anugrahat by your mercy. Translation purport by John Pesce Bhaktan Samshwar Prabhupada ki Jai. Translation Your Lordship is Your Lordship is my only means for getting out of this darkest region of ignorance, because you are my transcendental I, by your mercy only I have attained after many, many births. Purport. This verse is very instructive, since it indicates that the relationship between the spiritual master and the disciple. The disciple or the conditioned soul is put into the darkest region of ignorance and therefore is entangled in the material existence of sense gratification. It is very difficult to get out of this entanglement and attain freedom. But if one is fortunate enough to get the association of a spiritual master like Kapil Muni or his representative, then by his grace one can be delivered from the mire of ignorance. The spiritual master is therefore worshipped as one who delivers the disciple from the mire of ignorance with the light of the torch of knowledge. The word paragam is very significant. Paragam means one who can take the disciple to the other side. This side is conditioned life. The other side is the life of freedom. The spiritual master takes the disciple to the other side by opening his eyes with knowledge. We are suffering simply because of ignorance. By the instruction of the spiritual master, the darkness of ignorance is removed, and thus the disciple is enabled to go to the other side of freedom. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita that after many, many births, one surrenders to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And similarly, if after many, many births, one is able to find a bona fide spiritual master and surrender to such a bona fide representative of Krishna, he can be taken to the side of light. Text 9 Yadyo Bhagavan Pumsa ईश्वरो वै भवान् किल लोकस्य तामसं तस्य चक्षुसूर्य इवोदिता या he who Adya, the origin, Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Pumsam of all living entities, Ishvara, the Lord, Vai, in fact, Bhavan, you, Kila, indeed, Lokasya of the universe, Tamasa, by the darkness of ignorance, Andasya, blinded, Chakshu, eye, Surya, the sun, Eva, like Udita, rising. Translation: You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the origin of the Supreme Lord, this origin and the Supreme Lord of all living entities. You have arisen to disseminate the rays of the sun in order to dissipate the darkness of ignorance and of the universe. Purport: Kapila Muni is accepted as an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Here the word Adya means the origin of all living entities, and Pumsam Ishvara means the Lord, or Ishvara, of the living entities, Ishvara Parama Krishna. Kapila Muni is the direct expansion of Krishna, who is the sun of spiritual knowledge. As the sun dissipates the darkness of the universe, so when the light of the Supreme Personality of Godhead comes down, it at once dissipates the darkness of Maya. We have our eyes, but without the light of the sun, our eyes have no value. Similarly, without the light of the Supreme Lord, or without the divine grace of the spiritual master, one cannot see things as they are. Text 10. Athame deva sammoham apakrstum tvam arhasi yo vagraho ham mamaiti te etasmin yojitas tvaya atha. Now me, my Deva, O Lord, Sammoham, delusion, Apakrestum, to dispel Tvam, you Arhasi, be pleased here, which Avagraha, misconception, Aham, I, Mama, mine, iti, thus, Etasmin, in this, Yojita, engaged, Tvaya, by you. Translation: Now be pleased, my Lord, to dispel my great delusion. Due to my feelings of false ego, I have been engaged by your Maya and have identified myself with the body, and Bhagavad Gita 15th chapter, the Lord says, I am sitting in everyone's heart, and from me come everyone's remembrance and forgetfulness. Devahuti has stated that false identification of the body with the self and detachment for possessions in relation to the body are also under the direction of the Lord. Does this mean that the Lord discriminates by engaging one? You can scroll down. Devotional service, and another in sense gratification. If that were true, it would be incongruity on the part of the Supreme Lord, but that is not the actual fact. As soon as the living entity forgets his real constitutional position of eternal servitorship to the Lord and wants instead to enjoy himself by sense gratification, he is captured by Maya. This capture by Maya is the consciousness of false identification with the body and attachment for the possession of the body. These are the activities of Maya, and since Maya is also an agent of the Lord, you can scroll down, Prabhu. It is indirectly the action of the Lord. The Lord is merciful. If anyone wants to forget him and enjoy this material world, he gives him full facility, not directly, but through the agency of his material potency. Therefore, since the material potency is the Lord's energy, indirectly it is the Lord who gives the facility to forget him. Devahuti therefore said, My engagement in sense gratification was also due to you. Now kindly get me free from this entanglement. By the grace of the Lord, one is allowed to enjoy this material world, but when one is disgusted with the material enjoyment and is frustrated, and when one sincerely surrenders unto the lotus feet of the Lord, then the Lord is so kind that he frees one from entanglement. Krishna says, therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita, first of all surrender, and then I will take charge of you and free you from all reactions of sinful activities. Sinful activities are those activities performed in forgetfulness of our relationship with the Lord. In this material world, activities of material enjoyment, which are considered to be pious, are also sinful. For example, one sometimes gives something in charity to a needy person, with a view to get back the money four times increased. Giving with the purpose of gaining something is called charity in the mode of passion. Everything done here is done by the modes of material nature, and therefore all activities but service to the Lord are sinful. Because of sinful activities, we become attracted by the illusion of material attachment, and we think, I am this body. I think of the body as myself and the bodily possessions as mine. Devahuti requested Lord Kapila to free her from the entanglement of false identification and false possession. Thank you, Prabhu. Somebody wants to continue?
Thomas Prabhu. Praveen Prabhu, are you ready?
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, I am.
Go. Okay,
So,
can you?
yeah. Tell me, bro. Yeah, I can scroll down as well. No problem.
Thank you.
Okay. So it's Canto 3, chapter 24, text 11. Tvam tvam tva kataham sharanam saranyam svabhritya samsara taroh kutaram jignasayaham prakriteh purushasya namami sadharma vidam varishtham synonyms tam, that person, tva, unto you, gata, have gone, aham, I, sharanam, shelter, saranyam, worth taking shelter of, swabhritya, for your dependence, samsara, of material existence, taroh, of the tree, kutharam, the axe, jignasaya, with the desire to know, aham, I, prakriteh, of matter, woman, purushasya, of spirit, man, namami, I offer obeisances, sadharma, of the eternal occupation, vidam, of the knowers, varishtham, unto the greatest. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. Devahuti continued, I have taken shelter of your lotus feet because you are the one original person of whom to take shelter. You are the axe which can cut the tree of material existence. I therefore offer my obeisances unto you, who are the greatest of all transcendentalists, and I inquire from you as to the relationship between man and woman and between spirit and matter. Purport. Sankhya philosophy, as is well known, deals with Prakriti and Purusha. Purusha is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or anyone who imitates the Supreme Personality of Godhead as an enjoyer, and Prakriti means nature. In this material world, material nature is being exploited by the Purushas or the living entities. The intricacies in the material world of the relationship of the Prakriti and Purusha, or the enjoyed and the enjoyer, is called samsara, or material entanglement. Devahuti wanted to cut the tree of material entanglement, and she found a suitable weapon in Kapila Muni. The tree of material existence is explained in the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita as an Ashwatha tree whose root is upwards and whose branches are downwards. It is recommended there that one has to cut the root of this material existential tree with the acts of detachment. What is the attachment? The attachment involves Prakriti and Purusha. The living entities are trying to lord it over material nature. Since the conditioned soul takes material nature to be the object of his enjoyment, and he takes the position of the enjoyer, he is therefore called Purusha. Devahuti questioned Kapila Muni, for she knew that Only he could cut her attachment for this material world. The living entities, in the guises of men and women, are trying to enjoy the material energy. Therefore, in one sense, everyone is Purusha because Purusha means enjoyer and Prakriti means enjoyed. In this material world, both the so called man and so called woman intimating the are imitating the real Purusha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is actually the enjoyer in the transcendental sense, whereas all others are Prakriti. The living entities are considered Prakriti. In the Bhagavad Gita, matter is analyzed as apara or inferior nature, whereas beyond this inferior nature, there is another superior nature, the living entities. Living entities are also Prakriti or enjoyed, but under the spell of Maya. The living entities are falsely trying to take the position of enjoyers. That is, that is the cause of samsara bandha or conditional life. Devahuti wanted to get out of conditional life and place herself in full surrender. The Lord is Sharanya, which means the only worthy personality to whom one can fully surrender because he is full of all opulences. If anyone actually wants relief, the best course is to surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord is also described here as Sadharma Vidam Varishtam. This indicates that of all transcendental occupations, the best occupation is eternal loving service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Dharma is sometimes translated as religion, but this is not actually the meaning. Dharma actually means that which one cannot give up, that which is inseparable from oneself. The warmth of fire is inseparable from fire. Therefore, warmth is called the dharma or nature of fire. Similarly, sadharma means eternal occupation. That eternal occupation is engagement in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. The purpose of Kapilodev's Sankhya philosophy is to propagate pure, uncontaminated devotional service, and therefore he is addressed here as the most important personality amongst those who know the transcendental occupation of the living entity. Text 12. Maitreya Uvacha iti swamatur निरवध्यम् ईप्सितम् निशम्य पुंसाम् अपवर्गवर्धनम् धियाभिनन्द्यात्मवताम् सताम् गतिर्बद्धाश ईषत् स्मित शोभिताननः. Synonyms: Maitreya Uvacha. Maitreya said, Iti thus Swamatuhu of his mother, Niravadyam, uncontaminated, Ipsitam, desire, Nishamya, after hearing Pumsam of people, Apavarga, cessation of bodily existence, Vardhanam, increasing, Dhiya, mentally, Abhinandya, having thanked, Atmavatam, interested in self-realization, Satam of the transcendentalist, Gatihi, the path, Babhashe, he explained, Ishat, slightly, Smita, smiling, Shobhita, beautiful, Ananaha, his face. Translation: after hearing of his mother's uncontaminated desire for transcendental realization, the Lord thanked her within himself for her questions, and thus, his face smiling, he explained the path of the transcendentalists who are interested in self-realization. Purport: Devahuti has surrendered her confession of material entanglement and her desire to gain release. Her questions to Lord Kapila are very interesting for persons who are actually trying to get liberation from material entanglement and attain the perfectional stage of human life. Unless one is interested in understanding his spiritual life or his constitutional position, and unless he also feels inconceivable in material existence, his human form of life is spoiled. One who does not care for these transcendental necessities of life and simply engages like an animal in eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating has spoiled his life. Lord Kapila was very much satisfied by his mother's questions because the answers stimulate one's desire for liberation from the conditional life of material existence. Such questions are called Apavargavardhanam. Those who have actual spiritual interest are called Sat or devotees. Sata prashang, Prashangat. Satam Prashangat. Sat means that which eternally exists, and Asat means that which is not eternal. Unless one is situated on the spiritual platform, he is not Sat, he is Asat. The Asat stands on a platform which will not exist, but anyone who stands on the spiritual platform will exist eternally. As spirit soul, everyone exists eternally, but the Asat has accepted the material world as his shelter and therefore he is full of anxiety. Asat Grahan, the incompatible situation of the spirit soul who has the false idea of enjoying matter is the cause of all of the souls being asat. Actually, the spirit soul is not asat. As soon as one is conscious of this fact and takes to Krishna consciousness, then he becomes sat. Satam gati. The path of the eternal is very interesting to persons who are after liberation. And his lordship, Kapila, began to speak about that path. Text 13. Sri Bhagavan Vacha Yoga Adhyatmikah Pumsam Mato Nishreyasaya Me Atyantoparatir Yatra Dukkasya Cha Sukasya Cha. Synonyms. Sri Bhagavan Vacha, the personality of God, had said, Yoga, the yoga system, Adhyatmikaha, relating to the soul, Pumsam, of living entities, Mataha, is approved, Nishreyasaya, for the ultimate benefit, Me, by me, Atyanta, complete, Uparattaha, detachment, Uparatihi, detachment, Yatra, where, Dukkasya, from distress, Cha, and Sukasya, from happiness, Cha, and translation. The personality of Godhead answered the yoga system which relates to the Lord and the individual soul, which is meant for the ultimate benefit of the living entity and which causes detachment from all happiness and distress in the material world, is the highest yoga system. Report. In the material world, everyone is trying to get some material happiness, but as soon as we get some material happiness, there is also material distress. In the material world, one cannot have unadulterated happiness. Any kind of happiness one has is contaminated by distress also. For example, if we want to drink milk, then we have to bother to maintain a cow and keep her fit to supply milk. Drinking milk is very nice. It is also pleasure. But for the sake of drinking milk, one has to accept so much trouble. The yoga system, as here stated by the Lord, is meant to end all material happiness and material distress. The best yoga, as taught in the Bhagavad Gita by Krishna, is Bhakti Yoga. It is also mentioned in the Gita that one should try to be tolerant and not be disturbed by material happiness or distress. Of course, one may say that he is not disturbed by material happiness, but he does not know that just after one enjoys so called material happiness, material distress will follow. This is the law of the material world. Lord Kapila states that the yoga system is the science of the spirit. One practices yoga in order to attain perfection on the spiritual platform. There is no question of material happiness or distress. It is transcendental. Lord Kapila will eventually explain how it is transcendental, but the preliminary introduction is given here. Text 14. Tamimam te pravakshyami yam yavocham yam avocham puranghe ऋषीणां श्रोतु कामानां yogam sarvanga naipunam. Synonyms: tam imam, that very, te, to you, pravakshyami, I shall explain, yam, which, avocham, I explained, pura, formerly, ange, oh, pious mother, rishinam, to the sages, shrotu kamanam, eager to hear, yogam, yoga system, sarvanga, in all respects, naipunyam, serviceable and practical. Translation. O most pious mother, I shall now explain unto you the ancient yoga system which I explained formerly to the great sages. It is serviceable and practical in every way. Purport. The Lord does not manufacture a new system of yoga. Sometimes it is claimed that someone has become an incarnation of God and is expounding a new theological aspect of the absolute truth. But here we find that although Kapila Muni is the Lord himself and is capable of manufacturing a new doctrine for his mother, he nevertheless says, I shall just explain the ancient system which I once explained to the great sages because they were also anxious to hear about it. When we have a super excellent process already present in Vedic scriptures, there is no need to concoct a new system to mislead the innocent public. At present, it has become a fashion to reject the standard system and present something bogus in the name of a newly invented process of yoga. Next 15. Chetah कल्वस्य बन्धाय मुक्तये चातमनो मतं गुणेषु सक्तं बन्धाय रतं वा पुंसि मुक्तये. Synonyms: Chetah, consciousness, Khalu, indeed, Asya, of him, Bandhaya, for bondage, Muktaye, for liberation, Cha, and Atmanaha, of the living entity, Matam, is considered Guneshu in the three modes of nature, Saktam, attracted, Bandhaya, for conditional life, Ratam, attached, Va, or Pumsi, in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Muktaye, for liberation. Translation: the stage in which the consciousness of the living entity is attracted by the three modes of material nature is called conditional life. But when that same consciousness is attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one is situated in the consciousness of liberation. Purport. There is a distinction here between Krishna consciousness and Maya consciousness. Guneshu or Maya consciousness involves attachment to the three material modes of nature under which one works, sometimes in goodness and knowledge, sometimes in passion, and sometimes in ignorance. These different qualitative activities with the central attachment for material enjoyment are the cause of one's conditional life. When the same Chetaha or consciousness is transferred to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, or when one becomes Krishna conscious, he is on the path of liberation. Text 16. Aham mamaभिमानोत्तैः कामलोभादिभिर्मलैः वीतं यदा मनः शुद्धं दुःखमसुखं समम्. Synonyms: aham, I, mama, mine, abhimana, from the misconception, uttaihi produced kama, lust, lobha, greed, adibhi, and so on. Malaihi from the impurities, vitam freed, yada when manah the mind, suddham pure, adhukham without distress, asukam without happiness, samam equipoised. Translation: when one is completely cleansed of the impurities of lust and greed produced from the false identification of the body as I and bodily positions as mine, one's mind becomes purified. In that pure state, it transcends the stage of so-called material happiness and distress. Purport: Kama and Lobha are the symptoms of material existence. Everyone always desires to possess something. It is said here that desire and greed are the products of false identification of oneself with the body. When one becomes free from this contamination, then his mind and consciousness also become freed and attain their original state. Mind, consciousness, and the living entity exist. Whenever we speak of the living entity, this includes the mind and consciousness. The difference between conditional life and liberated life occurs when we purify the mind and the consciousness. When they are purified, one becomes transcendental to material happiness and distress. In the beginning, Lord Kapila has said that perfect yoga is to transcend the platform of material distress and happiness. How this can be done is explained here. One has to purify his mind and consciousness. This can be done by the Bhakti Yoga system. As explained in the Narada Pancharatra, one's mind and senses should be purified. Tat pratvena nirmalam. One's senses must be engaged in devotional service of the Lord. That is the process. The mind must have some engagement. One cannot make the mind vacant. Of course, there are some foolish attempts to try to make the mind vacant or void, but that is not possible. The only process that will purify the mind is to engage it in Krishna. The mind must be engaged. If we engage our mind in Krishna, naturally the consciousness becomes fully purified and there is no chance of the entrance of material desire and greed. Text 17. Tada purusha atmanam kevalam prakriteha param nirantaram swayam jyotir animanam akhanditam. Synonyms: tada, then, purusha, the individual soul, atmanam, himself, kevalam, pure, prakriteha param, transcendental to material existence, nirantaram, non-different, swayam jyotihi, self-effulgent, animanam, infinitesimal, infinitesimal, how to pronounce this? Okay. Akhanditam, not fragmented. Translation: at that time, the soul can see himself to be transcendent to material existence and also self-effulgent, never fragmented, although very minute in size. Purport: in the stage of pure consciousness or Krishna consciousness, one can see himself as a minute particle, non-different from the Supreme Lord. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, the Jiva or the individual soul is eternally part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Just as the sun's rays are minute particles of the brilliant constitution of the sun, so a living entity is a minute particle of the Supreme Spirit. The individual soul and the Supreme Lord are not separated as in material differentiation. The individual soul is a particle from the very beginning. One should not think that because the individual soul is a particle, it is fragmented from the whole spirit. Mayavada philosophy enunciates that the whole spirit exists, but a part of it, which is called the jiva, is entrapped by illusion. This philosophy, however, is unacceptable because spirit cannot be divided like a fragment of matter. That part, the jiva, is eternally a part. As long as the Supreme Spirit exists, his part and parcel also exists. As long as the sun exists, the molecules of the sun's rays also exist. The jiva particle is estimated in the Vedic literature to be 1 over 10,000, the size of the upper portion of a hair. It is therefore infinitesimal. The Supreme Spirit is infinite, but the living entity or the individual soul is infinitesimal. Although it is not different in quality from the Supreme Spirit, two words in this verse are to be particularly noted. One is Nirantaram, which means non-different or of the same quality. The individual soul is also expressed here as Animanam. Animanam means infinitesimal. The Supreme Spirit is all pervading, but the very small spirit is the individual soul. Akhanditam means not exactly fragmented, but constitutionally always infinitesimal. No one can separate the molecular parts of the sunshine from the sun, but at the same time, the molecular part of the sunshine is not as expansive as the sun itself. Similarly, the living entity, by its constitutional position, is qualitatively the same as the Supreme Spirit, but it is very infinitesimal. Text 18. ज्ञानवैराग्ययुक्तेन भक्तियुक्तेन चात्मना परिपश्यन्ति उदासीनं प्रकृतिं च हतौ जसम्. Synonyms: Jnana, knowledge, Vairagya, renunciation, Yuktena, equipped with Bhakti, devotional service, Yuktena, equipped with Cha, and Atmana, by the mind, Paripashyati, one sees Udasinam, indifferent, Prakritim, material existence, Cha, and Hata, Ojasam, reduced in strength. Translation: in that position of self-realization, by practice of knowledge and renunciation in devotional service, one sees everything in the right perspective. He becomes indifferent to material existence, and the material influence acts less powerfully upon him. Purport: as the contamination of the germs of a particular disease can influence a weaker person, similarly, the influence of material nature or illusionary energy can act on the weaker or conditioned soul, but not on the liberated soul. Self-realization is the position of the liberated state. One understands his constitutional position by knowledge and vairagya and renunciation. Without knowledge, one cannot have realization. The realization that one is the infinitesimal part and parcel of the Supreme Spirit makes him unattached to material conditional life. That is the beginning of devotional service. Unless one is liberated from material contamination, one cannot engage himself in the devotional service of the Lord. In this verse, therefore, it is stated, Jnana Vairagya Yuktena. When one is in full knowledge of one's constitutional position and is in the renounced order of life, detached from material attraction, then, by pure devotional service, Bhakti Yuktena, he can engage himself as a loving servant of the Lord. Pariprashyanti means that he can see everything in its right perspective. Then the influence of material nature becomes almost nil. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. Brahma Bhutaha Prasannatma. When one is self-realized, he becomes happy and free from the influence of material nature, and at the time he is freed from lamentation and hankering. The Lord states that position as Mad Bhaktim Labhate Param, the real stage of beginning devotional service. the real state of beginning devotional service. Similarly, it is confirmed in the Narada Pancharatra that when the senses are purified, they can then be engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. One who is attached to material contamination cannot be a devotee. Text 19. न युज्यमानया भक्त्या भगवत्यखिलात्मनि सदृशोऽस्ति शिवः पन्था योगिनां ब्रह्म सिद्धये synonyms not Vijyamanaya, being performed bhaktya, devotional service, Bhagavati, towards the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Akhila Atmani, the super soul, Sadrishaha, like Asti, there is Shivaha, auspicious Pantaha, path, Yogina of the yogis, Brahma Siddhaye, for perfection in self-realization. Translation: perfection in self-realization cannot be attained by any kind of yogi unless he engages in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because that is the only auspicious path. Purport: that knowledge and renunciation are never perfect unless joined by devotional service is explicitly explained here. Na yujyamanaya means without being dovetailed. When there is devotional service, then the question is where to offer that service. Devotional service is to be offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the super soul of everything, for that is the only reliable path of self-realization or Brahman realization. The word Brahma Siddhaye means to understand oneself to be different from matter, to understand oneself to be Brahman. The Vedic words are Aham Brahmasmi. Brahma Siddhi means that one should know that he is not matter, he is pure soul. There are different kinds of yogis, but every yogi is supposed to engage in self-realization or Brahman realization. It is clearly stated here that unless one is fully engaged in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one cannot have easy approach to the path of Brahma Siddhi. In the beginning of the second chapter of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, it is stated that when one engages himself in the devotional service of Vasudeva, spiritual knowledge and renunciation of the material world automatically become manifest. Thus, a devotee does not have to try separately for renunciation or knowledge. Devotional service itself is so powerful that by one's service attitude, everything is relieved. Everything is revealed. It is stated here, Shiva Pantaha. This is the only auspicious path for self-realization. The path of devotional service is the most confidential means for attaining Brahman realization. That perfection in Brahman realization is attained through the auspicious path of devotion service indicates that the so-called Brahman realization or realization of the Brahma Jyoti effulgence is not Brahma Siddhi. Beyond that Brahma Jyoti, there is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Upanishads, a devotee prays to the Lord to kindly put aside the effulgence, Brahma Jyoti, so that the devotee may see within the Brahmajyoti the actual eternal form of the Lord. Unless one attains realization of the transcendental form of the Lord, there is no question of bhakti. Bhakti necessitates the existence of the recipient of devotional service and the devotee who renders devotional service. Bhakti Siddhi through devotional service is the realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The understanding of the effulgent rays of the body of the Supreme Godhead is not the perfect stage of Bhakti Siddhi or Brahman realization, nor is the realization of the Paramatma feature of the Supreme Person perfect, because Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is Akhilatma. He is the super soul, one who realizes the Supreme Personality, realizes the other features, namely the Paramatma feature and the Brahman feature, and that realization is Brahma Siddhi. Text 20. Prasangam ajaram pasam atmanah kavayo viduhu sayeva sadhushu krito moksha dwaram apavritam. Synonyms: prasangam, attachment; ajaram, strong; pasham, entanglement; atmanaha, of the soul; kavayaha, learned men; viduhu, no; sahayeva, that same; sadhushu, to the devotees; kritaha, applied; mokshadwaram, the door of liberation; apavritam, opened. Translation: every learned man knows very well that attachment for the material is the greatest entanglement of the spiritual soul. But that same attachment, when applied to the self-realized devotees, opens the door of liberation. Purport: here it is clearly stated that attachment for one thing is the cause of bondage in conditional life, and the same attachment, when applied to something else, opens the door of liberation. Attachment cannot be killed, it has simply to be transferred. Attachment for material things is called material consciousness, and attachment for Krishna or his devotee is called Krishna consciousness. Consciousness, therefore, is the platform of attachment. It is clearly stated here that when we simply purify the consciousness from material consciousness to Krishna consciousness, that is liberation. Despite the statement that one should give up attachment, desirelessness is not possible for a living entity. A living entity, by constitution, by the propensity to be attached to something. We see that if someone has no object of attachment, if he has no children, then he transfers his attachment to cats and dogs. This indicates that the propensity for attachment cannot be stopped. It must be utilized for the best purpose. Our attachment for material things perpetuates our conditional state, but the same attachment, when transferred to the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his devotee, is the source of liberation. Here it is recommended that attachment should be transferred to the self-realized devotees, the sadhus. And who is a sadhu? A sadhu is not just an ordinary man with a saffron robe or long beard. A sadhu is described in the Bhagavad Gita as one who unflinchingly engages in devotional service, even though one is found not to be following the strict rules and regulations of devotional service. If one simply has unflinching faith in Krishna, the Supreme Person, he is understood to be a sadhu. Sadhurevasa Mantavyaha. A sadhu is a strict follower of devotional service. It is recommended here that if one at all wants to realize Brahman or spiritual perfection, his attachment should be transferred to the sadhu or devotee. Lord Chaitanya also confirms this Lavamatra sadhu sange sarva siddhi haya. Simply by a moment's association with a sadhu, one can attain perfection. Mahatma is a synonym of sadhu. It is said that service to a Mahatma or elevated devotee of the Lord is Dwaram Ahur Vimukhya. The royal road of liberation. Mahat Sevam Dwaram Ahur Vimuktes Tamo Dwaram Yoshitam Sangi Sangam. Rendering service to the materialistics has the opposite effect. If one offers service to a gross materialist or a person engaged only in sense enjoyment, then by association with such a person, the door to hell is opened. Bhagavatam 5:5-2. The same principle is confirmed here. Attachment to a devotee is attachment to the service of the Lord, because if one associates with a sadhu, then the result will be that the sadhu will teach him how to become a devotee or a how to become a devotee, a worshipper, and a sincere servitor of the Lord. These are the gifts of a sadhu. If we want to associate with a sadhu, we cannot expect him to give us instructions on how to improve our material condition, but he will give us instructions on how to cut the knot of the contamination of material attraction and how to elevate ourselves in the devotional service. That is the result of associating with a sadhu. Kapila Muni, first of all, instructs that the path of liberation begins with such association.
Haribol. Okay, thank you so much, Prabhu. Now it's getting too late. We have to go to 6 Astakam prayers. Really nice progress today. We read so many verses, 20 verses. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. Cheto darpanamarjanam bhavamahadavagni nirvapanam shreyah kairava chandrika vitaranam vidyavadhu jivanam anandambudhivardhanam pratipadam purnamrutaswadanam sarvatma snapanam param vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam.
नाम्नामकारि बहुधानि च सर्वशक्तिस्तत्रार्पितानि अमिता स्मरणेन कालगतीतादृशी तव कृपा भगवन् ममापि दुर्दैवं दृशं यजमिनानुरागा
यदपि सुनीचेन तरोरपि सहिष्णुना तेन कीर्तनीया सदा हरि
न धनं न जनं न सुन्दरीं कवितां वा जगदीश कामये मम जन्मनि जन्मनीश्वरे भवताद्भक्तिरहेतुकी त्वयि
नन्दतनुजा किङ्करं पतितं मां विषमे भवाम्बुधौ कृपया तव पादपङ्कजस्थितधूलिसदृशं विचिन्तया
नयनं गलदश्रुधारया वदनं गद्गदहृदया गिरा पुलकैर्निशितं वपुः कदा तव नाम ग्रहणे भविष्यति
युगायितं निमिषेण चक्षुषा प्रावृषायितं शून्यायितं जगत्सर्वं गोविन्दावय नमे
श्लिष्य वा पातरतां पिनष्टु मामदर्शनान् मर्महतां करोतु वा यथा तथा वा विरता तुलं पतो मत्प्राणनाथस्तु सेवनापरः Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. The Sankirtan movement is the primary addiction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious.
O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by chanting your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Hmm. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than a straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. Oh Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service birth after birth. Oh Son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms of your lotus feet. Oh my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up and when will the hair of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? Oh Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he handles me roughly in his embrace or makes me broken hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything for he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Sri Sikshastakam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu
Jai.
ki jai.
Jai.
Bahujanma Karayati Shravana Kirtan Tabutana Paya Krishna Pade Premadan. If one is infested with the 10 offenses in the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, despite his endeavor to chant the holy name for many birds, he will not get the love of God. That is the ultimate goal of this chanting. The 10 offenses against the holy name are as follows. The first offense is to blaspheme the devotees who have dedicated their lives for propagating the holy name of the Lord.
Second offense is to consider the names of demigods like Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent of the name of Lord Vishnu. Third offense is to disobey the orders of the spiritual master. Fourth offense is to blaspheme the Vedic literature or literature in pursuance of the Vedic version. Fifth offense is to consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be an imagination. Sixth offense is to give some interpretation on the holy name of the Lord. Seventh offense is to commit sinful activities on the strength of the holy name of the Lord. Eighth offense is to consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities offered in the Vedas as fruitive activity is karma kanda. Ninth offense is to instruct a faithless person about the glories of the holy name. Tenth offense is not to have complete faith in the chanting of the holy names and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnava must guard against these offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Let us offer our respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They can fulfill the desires of everyone, just like desire trees, and they are full of compassion for the fallen souls. Vancha
Vancha
kalpatarubhyascha
kalpatarubhasya kripa
कृपा
sindhubhyavach
patapayescha
सिन्धुभ्यश्च
पतितानां
patitana
पावनेभ्यो
pavanebhyo
वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो
Vaishnavebhyo
नमः
namo namah.
Anand
अनंत कोटि
Koటి
वैष्णव की
Vaishnava
जय
Jai.
श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय निताय
जय
गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल
हरे हरे बोल
Okay, now Praveen Prabhu, please give Pranjal Prabhu his answer.